Okay, here we go. So chapter 12 is enhancing creativity in groups and teams. So page 181, we'll look at the learning objectives for the chapter. In 12.1, we'll define creativity. 12.2, we'll identify reasons for studying creativity. 3, we'll describe 3 myths about group and team creativity. Number 4, we'll identify barriers to group and team creativity. And number 5, we'll identify principles that enhance group and team creativity. 6, we will discuss the importance of space to increase creativity, like your environment. I have a lot of space behind me, for example. And 12.7 will describe brainstorming, the nominal group technique, the Delphi technique, electronic brainstorming, and the affinity technique for enhancing creativity. So let's move on to 12.1. What is creativity? So in 12.1, we'll actually define it. So creativity is the generation, application, combination, and extension of new ideas. Some research make a distinction between creativity, thinking of new ideas, and innovation, which is putting new ideas into action. So innovation includes 4 steps. Number 1, idea generation. Number 2, feasibility analysis. Number 3, reality testing. And number 4, implementation. So innovation extends the notion of creativity by transforming a creative idea into something that is actually put into practice. So innovation is kind of the action step, whereas creativity kind of might be like generating the ideas. But a lot of people say it's all together. Now, people who draw upon their intuition to make creative decisions ultimately make better decisions. Your intuition is kind of like what your natural leanings mentally, physically say you should do. For example, women's intuition will maybe give them some ideas of threats to assess in a situation a lot better than maybe men who aren't as afraid of certain situations, and maybe that's not a good thing. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. In face-to-face and virtual teams that are involved with developing creativity, we notice that these 4 parallels constantly emerge. And if you look at the visual aid, you kind of see a group of people working on creative ideas. So number 1 is the idea generation phase. So group members actively identify a range of new ideas, possibilities, and approaches to the issue at hand, right? So you're just generating ideas. Maybe later on, we'll talk about brainstorming, which is a mechanism to do that. So number 2 is the development phase. Ideas are extended and additional information is gathered to support the initial nuggets of ideas, right? Now we do a little bit of research and we test our ideas so we can develop them into really feasible, tangible ideas. And number 3 is finalization and closure phase, which the group agrees on which are the best ideas to do, right? And then number 4, evaluation phase, the team assesses the value and worth of ideas. Like you could apply criteria like cost benefit analysis, and then you give the different options a grade, and you always choose the one with the best grade or something like that. And you get rid of ideas that have a bad grade. So 12.2 is like, why study creativity, especially in communication group class, right? You think that maybe this is more something that you do in writing or in art, but invention is actually the process of developing new ideas as we communicate with others and attempt to persuade them to adopt our ideas and suggestions. So especially between teams, like, let's go see this movie or watch the show, right? You want the group to, your group of friends in this case, maybe to agree with you, right? So it's vital to be able to generate and articulate ideas and suggestions. So research suggests that in addition to using our logical and analytical powers, our intuition, which we talked about earlier, can help us make high quality decisions. Intuition is pretty powerful. They often say when you're taking a standardized test, go with your instinct or your intuition. You're trying to guess between answers, right? So Roger Fire's team was actually particularly interested in the effects of creative problem-solving training on communication behaviors in small groups. And group members in the training group were taught a 6-stage model of creative problem-solving. So Fire's side, we're talking about the 6-step model. So number 1 is mess finding, isolating a concern or problem on which to work. So let's figure out what thing we want to tackle today, because in life you got lots of different problems and concerns to deal with, but now we're just going to focus on one. That's step 1. So 2 is data finding, and this is where you generate and select the most important ideas regarding the mess. Number 3, problem finding, generating and selecting a statement that captures the essence of the situation. So maybe put it into a question form that people can really understand what we're trying to do. And step 4 is idea finding, generating and selecting the best available alternatives for solving the problems. So I need to improve my grade in this class. I could hire a tutor. I could go see the professor in the office hours. I could study more, read more, watch the video lectures, right? Go spend more time on Canvas. And then even there's a bunch of other ideas I might have that will help me get a better grade in this class, which is the problem. Step 5 is solution finding. This is using criteria to screen, select, and support ideas, select an idea finding. So I might say, let's go on a vacation, but we have a limited budget, right? So every vacation that is too expensive gets eliminated. So you apply this criteria to sort of filter out what ideas work and don't work. And step 6 is acceptance finding, generating ways to implement the solution and then developing a plan for action. So Firestein's research, found clear evidence that trained group members used humor to enhance the creative process and were more supportive and less critical of ideas suggested by others, which is a very important element of being creative. So humor is really, really good for creative situations. And then also you want to support people and not criticize them when people are trying to be creative. And ultimately, groups that receive training in creative problem-solving techniques produce many more ideas than groups that have not. So training makes a big difference in terms of creative problem-solving techniques, right? You actually have to kind of know all the different steps and ways, which is what Chapter 12 is going to do for you. So 12.3, let's talk about the myths about creativity, things that are not true that a lot of people think are true, right? That's a myth. So 12.3.1 is creativity is a mysterious process that cannot be learned. Absolutely not true. All of us can learn how to be more creative, how to apply our mind, and put ourselves in different situations where we can be more creative, more thoughtful, more participative, and more critical thinking. So 12.3.2 is only a few gifted people are creative. That's actually also possible. All creative humans are all about creation. They're creating, children, future legacy, more generations, to creating ideas, objects, technologies. We create like birthday parties and events and occasions, and everybody's creative. You just want to learn how to engage in the creative process. 12.3.3 is creativity just happens. Again, that's a myth. You have to work at it. You have to learn the techniques. You have to apply yourself. 12.4, let's talk about the barriers to group and team creativity. What stops people from being creative in a group? So 12.4.1 is that there's premature evaluation of ideas. So people throw out ideas in a group and then they are before they're really, really, really fairly assessed, they're instinctively rejected, right? They're pre-evaluated to not be worthy of consideration. So you got to give all ideas a chance before you reject them. 12.4.2 is poor physical surroundings. I have the quote from A Clean, Well-Lighted Place by Ernest Hemingway. That was a famous book, small book essay that he wrote. Michelle had at the end of college across the street, a long time ago, there used to be a bookstore called Clean, Well-Lighted Place, right? And the idea here is that people don't think creatively when your physical surroundings are dark or limited, or like you feel claustrophobic, right? Or you feel like it's kind of damp and murky or anything like that. So lighting can make a big difference. Making it clean can make a big difference. Making sure it's comfortable, like stuff in beanbags and furniture instead of just desks and chairs. 12.4.3 is too many people. And basically we realize that smaller groups are better. Too many people makes creativity limited. So you need maybe like 4 to 6 instead of like 10 to a dozen. And so smaller groups are better for creativity. Timing also matters in 12.4.4. Just when you offer the idea matters, as opposed to, actually you can say that everything in life is about timing, right? So when the opportunity and the time is right, you have to be able to carpe diem, seize the day. So constantly understand that when you suggest an idea can make a big difference. And then 12.4.5 is thinking. So thinking consists of thoughts that limit the possibilities of an individual, group, or organization. Creativity is reduced when group or team members are sound bites that discourage rather than encourage the group to think of new possibilities. So you have people just making little comments, innuendos, again, very critical. There's somebody offers an idea and you're like, oh, I wish I thought of that. Or you're like, that's silly. And people make negative comments, and that, again, sound bites, and that really, really discourages creativity. You want everyone to feel supported and open and not to be judged when they throw their ideas out there. So here's some examples of stinking thinking. We simply can't do this. We've never done it this way before. We tried that a few years ago and it didn't work, right? They won't let us do this. Or you can't be serious, right? So a technique for overcoming negative thinking pioneered by Prescott Leckie is called TikTok. So it's quite simple. You make an effort to flip a negative idea into a positive one. So here's how to do it. So make 2 headings on a sheet of paper, one called tick, the other called talk. Whenever there's a negative thought, write it in the tick column. And now think of the substitute positive idea to counter the negative idea. And that goes into the talk section. So I might have people like, you're telling your kids, don't run, because it's like dangerous around the pool, to slip and fall, hurt themselves. So instead of saying don't run as a tick, I'm going to go to the talk and say, please walk slowly, right? So I'm thinking about, don't tell kids not what to do. Tell them what to do, right? So instead of saying no, you always say, hey, do this way, right? Instead of just the negative ideas all the time. Don't tell kids what not to do. Tell them what to do. That's a really, really good parent teacher. 2.5 is the principles of team and group creativity. So groups will be more creative if they're motivated. They use creativity fostering processes, such as having everyone participate in the discussion, like everybody in your group participates in all the discussions or all the topic choices, and not just group leader throws an idea and everybody says, okay, let's do it, right? Everybody has to participate. Throw out, suggest an idea. And they communicate effectively by involving everyone, providing useful feedback, and addressing conflict when it arises. So group creativity research suggests that groups are more likely to be creative if they are critically analyze and define the problem, intentionally foster a climate of freedom to be creative, listen to minority points of view, encourage members to assume new perspectives or roles. Remember the devil's advocate. And number 5, let's find ways to structure the process so that's not chaotic and all over the place. We go follow an agenda, or we follow the brainstorming technique, we follow the rules in the face that are followed out. So research suggests that sometimes an individual may actually hold the key to coming up with a creative solution. A team that is too conforming or collectivistic may inadvertently put a damper on creativity. So groups and teams need to permit individuals to share their individual ideas rather than just going along with the majority opinion. Right? So make everyone participate and suggest an idea for your formal speech, persuasive speech, and business presentation. Right? Everybody in your group should be suggesting ideas, and you go through all of them, and then you figure out which one's the best one. 5.1, let's appropriately analyze and find the problem. So before attempting to come up with creative solutions for a problem, make sure the group knows what the problem is and has some information, data, or evidence to serve as a springboard for possible solutions. Arthur Van Gundy suggests that the group may need to reframe the problem or reanalyze the issue to come up with a creative slant on what confronts the group. So the way you analyze the problem or the issue can lead to certain solutions. But if you only call it this, right, like Peter is a bad person, that's not that helpful for finding solutions to figure out creative solutions how to make Peter a better person, right? So maybe we got to reframe it as not just Peter's a bad person, but Peter could be a better instructor, Peter could be a better father, Peter could be a better husband, right? And then you broken it down where you can really properly analyze and find the problems. So 12.5.2 is create a climate of freedom, right? Not a climate of like worry and judgment. So for maximum creativity, group members need to have the freedom to express ideas, even partial ideas, without fear of being ridiculed, right? We all are afraid of being judged. We throw ideas out there of any sort. So researchers have found that group members who are motivated to be creative are more innovative. So explicitly expressing an interest in creating a creative, feeling climate can enhance creativity. That's why, if you go to Facebook, there's art everywhere. Or if you go to Google, there's bowling alley, there's jelly beans, right? And there are bean bags to sit down. Things that always, the atmosphere there is always supportive of you working hard and being creative. So as part of the creativity training, our group members are given toys such as modeling clay, rubber band powered airplanes, Nerf balls, and wooden blocks, and are invited to play. So being playful encourages freedom of expression, a key ingredient of creativity. Children, that's why you really encourage play when children are little too, because it's really a form of expression, right? How they play, who they play with, what they play. If, for example, your group is dominated by a problem, take time off to play. Taking a walk, going for a snack, like go to the boba together before you tackle the outline. Or doing something else the group members consider fun, maybe just what the group needs to boost its creativity. 12.5.3, let's listen to minority points of view. So creativity research suggests that groups are with a diversity of opinions and ideas are much more creative. Not everybody thinking the same way. So specifically, some researchers have concluded that groups that have more ethnic and racial diversity develop more creative solutions to problems. Right? So definitely want some men and women in the group, definitely want some older people, younger people, and you want people of the different races, and even sexual orientation, to really come up with a lot of perspectives to get the best and most creative ideas. So in general, having more information available and listening to that information enhances group creativity. 4.4, let's encourage people to see things and themselves differently. So thinking outside the box expresses the power of seeing facts, issues, and problems from a new vantage point. Instead of analyzing a problem from your own point of view, consider taking on a new role to gain a different point of view, right? Problems are different from being the mom, the dad, or the oldest child, the middle child, the youngest child, right? Because the problem affects you differently. So I'm going to look at this picture of this cake here and say, let's see if you can think outside the box. How do you cut this cake in half with only one slice? Because there's a big piece missing, right? So the cake isn't too symmetrical anymore. And the idea is that everyone cuts cake with a knife vertically, right? But if you only get one slice and you want to cut this cake in half, you have to cut it horizontally. to get it one slide's cut in half, right? And it just shows you, if you could think, wait a minute, I can cut the cake sideways instead of always cutting it vertically and putting it into little pieces like we always do at every cake event. You can see that you can think outside the box. So 12.6, so let's talk about selectively increasing group and team structure. And 12.6, we'll discuss the importance of space to increase creativity. So creativity is not only during periods of high stimulation, but also during quiet periods when the ideas silently creep into our consciousness, sometimes like we're sleeping in our dreams. Invite group and team members to write and think individually before sharing ideas orally. So before you come to the group meeting, to talk about like what should our topic be and how should we break it down among the group to present it, you might actually make sure that everybody in the group writes some ideas down before we even come to the meeting so that they have something prepared they can rely on, which makes them participate more. And that structure is good for, let's do this, prepare this in advance, will make group meetings better. Increasing group structure by alternating periods of personal reflection and writing with oral sharing, sharing of ideas may actually help prime the group's creative. So group and team members sometimes need the necessary space for ideas to emerge. Not only a physical space, although it's discussed above, groups need a good environment in which to work, but also psychological space of ideas can percolate. That's interesting, psychological space. So research suggests that people who can live with some uncertainty and who don't need immediate closure are more likely to generate creative ideas than people who need to find the right answer in a short period of time. So people who are patient and don't try to force an immediate answer to a question or speed solution to a problem are likely to be more creative. So basically, people, if you have a culture where you're like instant gratification, let's hit the drive-through, right? And you're always trying to save time and be efficient. It shows you that you're not going to always generate the best creative ideas because you're thinking kind of too quickly and doing things too quickly and too reactively and involuntarily. So 12.7, let's talk about the techniques for enhancing group and team creativity. So number 12.7 is number one is this, let's talk about brainstorming, nominal technique, Delphi technique, electronic brainstorming, and the affinity technique for enhancing creativity. So 12.7.1 is about brainstorming. I actually do this all the time. I think it's one of the most important ideas and ways to create ideas and solutions for all the things that you have to deal with in life. It's a technique, right? And every time I come to a problem, I try and brainstorm it before I decide what to do. So brainstorming is a creative technique designed to help a group generate several solutions to a problem. It was first developed by Alex Osborne, who was an advertising technique, an executive who felt the need for creative technique that did not emphasize evaluating and criticizing ideas, throw it out there and let everyone shoot it down, right? You want to keep it supportive instead. And instead, focus on developing imaginative and innovative solutions. So brainstorming is used by businesses, communities, government agencies to improve the quality of group decision making. Our research suggests that a trained facilitator like me can improve the execution of group brainstorming. So having somebody who can facilitate the whole brainstorming process, make sure everyone follows the different steps, will make it much more effective. So number one in brainstorming is we have to select a specific problem that needs solving. So in this case, we need a topic for like our informative speech. So be sure that all group members can identify and clearly define the problem, right? So everybody's thought about informative speech assignment and how it should work and what it should be about, and therefore everybody has an idea on the topic, right? And we throw the 5 or 6 ideas in there, we vote on them, and those votes wins. Democracy is a good way to decide, and then you can actually choose a topic that everyone has thrown some ideas into. So number 2 is set a clear time limit. That's we have a due date, the outline, and the presentation is due by certain days. So make sure we do our brainstorming before we get to those things. Number 3, ask group members to temporarily put aside all judgments and evaluations. The key to brainstorming is ruling out all criticism and evaluation. We talked about earlier, when people criticize, the ideas die. People are intimidated, they feel judged, they no longer want to participate. So again, no criticism, no evaluation whatsoever. Right? Everyone's just supportive, you write all the ideas, and then later on, you can go through the pros and cons of each idea. So part of that is to acquire a try anything attitude. Like I went to dim sum yesterday, and I had a couple of dim sum things that I hadn't really tried before. I was like, no problem, I'll try it all. Because my friends were all like, they were like, do you like that? What do you think? I'm like, dude, I haven't tried anything attitude. Honestly, when it comes to food, I definitely will try everything at least once. I did not try the Phoenix claws, which are the chicken feet. But that's the one thing I was like, no thanks. But generally, everything else I'll try. Avoid criticism, which again can stifle creativity. Remember that all ideas are thought starters. So sometimes the idea can lead to another idea, which is what you want. But if you throw that idea out there that leads to another idea and it gets criticized or judged, you'll never get to that final step. And that today's criticism may actually kill tomorrow's ideas. There are so many examples of people telling you, we can't do this, we're not capable, we can't achieve it. People are negative, and people don't have like that do-it spirit. So I would be very, very careful. And your mind is so powerful. It'll tell you, oh, you can't run up that hill. It'll be so hard. You'll have a heart attack, die. It makes people lazy and unmotivated. It's really amazing what your mind can do to you to prevent you from becoming who you want to become. Number four, let's ask group of team members to think about as many possible solutions to the problem as they can and just share those ideas with the group. And consider the following suggestions. Remember, the wilder the ideas, the better, right? Because we don't judge, criticize, or evaluate. So it doesn't matter if they're wild. It's easier to tame ideas down to think ideas up. So understand that you're going to, it's a lot easier to take an idea and shrink it down rather than to kind of build it up. So be careful of that criticism, bug that everyone has. We all know the people who are judgy, right? Always judging everything that gets thrown out there. So those people are not good group members for creativity. Think out loud and mention unusual ideas, right? So I come with a lot of wild suggestions, and a lot of times I'm just thinking out loud, right? And then finally, someone's wild idea makes for a very good solution from another person in the group. Just kind of why you want to let the creativity go and not judge it or stifle it, because you never know how somebody will say something that somebody else will hear and then think of a good idea off of that. So number five, let's make sure the group understands that piggybacking of someone's idea is useful. Combine ideas, let's add previous ideas, let's adopt the philosophy that once an idea is presented to the group, no one owns it. It just belongs to the whole group and anyone can modify it. Six, have someone record all the ideas mentioned. So during brainstorming techniques, we're usually writing all the ideas down like on the whiteboard or a piece of paper so that everyone can see. Ideas can be recorded on a flip chart, chalkboard, whiteboard, or overhead projector so that each group member can see them. You can also tape record your discussions. Number seven, let's evaluate the ideas when the time allotted for brainstorming is elapsed. So, we do 1 hour brainstorming and gather all these ideas. Now we move on to evaluation phase. Now we got to judge them and figure out which ideas work and which ones don't, right? So consider these suggestions. Approach each idea positively, give it a fair trial, see what the results are. Number two, try to make the ideas workable. And third, encourage feedback about the success of a session. If even a few of the ideas generated by a group are useful, the session has been successful. So let's learn about the nominal group technique in 1272. So in the quiet, the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. Author Susan Cain, great book, by the way, if you're an introvert or want to understand introverts better, suggests that some people just don't perform well in an environment with lots of talk and interaction. That's the environment of oral brainstorming. So if you gain energy by retreating to a quiet place of solitude rather than being around other people, you're probably more introverted than extroverted. An introvert is someone who's not necessarily shy, but simply prefers thinking and listening rather than speaking and interacting with others. The nominal group technique is a procedure that uses some principal methods of active brainstorming but its members write their ideas down while being quiet and thinking before sharing them with the group. It's akin to silent brainstorming. So the nominal group technique just says that, okay, so introverts don't really do as well in brainstorming environment as extroverts do. So introvert can counter that by preparing their ideas before they come to the meeting, and then where they can rely on what they've written down to make them feel comfortable to present their ideas rather than orally doing it, verbally doing it in that environment. So that's a great way to get the introverts more participating. Now, 1273 is the Delphi technique. So the Delphi is the oracle. So whereas the nominal group technique invites participants to contribute ideas by first writing them down and then sharing them with the group, the Delphi technique takes this idea one step further. This method is actually named after the ancient oracle at Delphi. It's been called absentee brainstorming because individuals share ideas or writing via email without meeting face-to-face. So one person coordinates their information and shares it with the rest of the group. And this approach is especially useful when there's conflict within the group that inhibits effective group interaction, or when time and distance constraints make it difficult for group members to meet. So with the Delphi techniques, let's use writing or email chains to create the brainstorming process or the creative process. So we're doing it not on a Zoom meeting, not face-to-face, but we're doing it in email chains. So 1275 is the affinity technique. So if you ever sat down at a desk cluttered with papers, that's my desk, by the way, for a variety of projects and realize that you need to sort papers into piles to help you organize your desk. Well, the affinity technique is a method for sorting through and organizing ideas that you may generate. The affinity technique is similar to the nominal group technique, but instead of listing ideas on paper, group members write it down in post-it notes, right? We put the post-it notes for everyone to see. We can move them around or throw them away or make new ones. Like the other variations of brainstorming that we discussed, the group is assigned an issue problem which to generate ideas. The entire group or a smaller subcommittee then organizes the ideas that have an affinity or are similar to each other into categories, and then you can maybe come up with a better in this case, topic for your informal speech or persuasive speech or your business presentation. So page 191 is talk about using your whole mind, right? Like holistic thinking. HOLISTIC. We don't have the W in front of it. So Daniel Pink in his book, A Whole New Mind, Why Right Brainers Will Rule the Future, argues that as we become awash of data, numbers, statistics, it is increasingly important that we use what he calls the whole mind to make sense out of all the bits of information that bombard us. So using the whole mind draws upon what has been dubbed both left brain logical thinking and right brain creativity. Applying this whole-minded thinking to groups can help groups develop more creative solutions to problems. So Pink, Mr. Pink draws upon contemporary brain research to identify what he calls the six senses for our conceptual age. Applying Pink's six senses to group deliberations can help groups and teams make much more creative decisions. So we focus on design, not just function. How can we redesign the procedure or the process we are focusing on? Okay. Guys, I'm going to function over fashion, right? And design over function. We're not just being practical. We can get the design of something and how we arrive at ideas or solutions rather than just the functional approach of it or the pragmatics or the practicalness of it. Number two, let's find the big story. What's the underlying story we are really discussing? Right. So we're looking at the group members do their individual roles in the presentation, they kind of micro focus on just that. But you have to remember to focus on the big story. We're doing a group presentation on this topic, even though my role is only to discuss this part of it, right? But you keep the big picture in mind and you say things, do things that connect that big picture. Listen to the entire symphony, not just one note or instrument. So how are all the pieces fitting together to work together as a symphonic whole? Right? Is your group presentation a symphony or just six individual players in a row that are loosely connected by group topic or subject matter or some slides? So be empathic. What would others feel about what we're recommending? What would be their emotional response? Anger or hatred or justice? And because remember, humans are emotional creatures and often react to things by emotion, not by logic. Make time to play. And talked about this earlier. Play is important. It's a good way to express yourself. How can we bring a sense of play and experimentation to the discussion? And finally, find the meaning. What is the meaning behind what we really want to achieve, right? What's the meaning of life? What is the meaning of cryptocurrency? What's the meaning of pizza? It's a food, right? But why is it the number one most popular food in America? And there's more pizza restaurants than any other type of restaurant. 1276. Let's talk about how to use brainstorming in your routine there. So set aside a definite amount of time for brainstorming. Let's set a timer for 30 minutes. Let's collect ideas for 30 minutes, and then we'll judge, criticize, and evaluate them after that 30-minute timer is up. Right. So do not make the time limit for brainstorming too short. 30 minutes is plenty. You have a lot of time to come up with lots of creative ideas there. Be certain that each group or team member understands the specific problem to be solved, right? So that we're all on the same page. We're trying to find a topic. We're trying to figure out a topic that we can divide amongst our group into 5 or 6 different parts. That'll make a coherent, synergistic presentation. Make sure that each group member follows the brainstorming rules, that we're following the time, that everyone's participating. Everyone has to suggest at least one idea or more, right? So that you don't have some group members just sort of sitting there doing nothing. And if you serve as the group's leader, try to draw less talkative group members into the discussion, right? Ask them what they think. Don't just assume that if they have an idea, they'll mention it. Because they might be introverts and not that comfortable in a verbal situation. Consider reverse brainstorming. With this method, group members brainstorm ideas, solutions that will make the problem worse. After generating such a list, the group consider the implications being the opposite of what was identified. Right? So that one's kind of an interesting one. So here you're not trying to solve a problem, you're trying to think about ways to make it worse, and then you can figure out the opposite side, which gives you perspective on the side that you're trying to accomplish. And then establish a brainstorming bulletin board. So you just have a place like a whiteboard, a bulletin board, an email thread, a discussion where you can brainstorm constantly. So chapter reviews, again, page 193 and 95, and that wraps up chapter 12. All right. Good luck on the final exam coming up shortly. I'll see you all later.